Item passes. Item 3C, presentation by Parish and Pruitt for the new food service bill. Anyone here, Parish and Pruitt?
That's us. Do I just stand here and just talk to you?
Yeah, we got it. How about right here? Yes, sir.
Yeah. This one. So turn this around and what do I do? I hate to turn my back to that, but. Okay, well, thank you all for having us. My name is Philippe Pruitt. My colleague over here, Caleb Hebert, I'm going to be giving y'all this presentation. This is a process that we started a few months back, meeting with the people of food service, the superintendents, and other people in administration. And it's been a fun process. We've learned a lot as we were going through it. Put a lot into different aspects of it. Getting some information from Ms. Lucretia, with the current information, kind of brought a little bit further and kind of verified some stuff from a compliance standpoint, and code standpoint, and developed a plan for food service as well as meeting with the IT department. We also met with that group and combined the food service and IT department into a new facility. So I'd like to kick it off just by saying, like I said, it's been fun, and we've really enjoyed working with the group to get to where it is right now. And you want to kind of, if you look up here, this is kind of like a still shot of the front of the building. There you go. Okay. One of the things that I think was a requirement was to try to put the new facility on the piece of property that the school board already owned, which is right next to this facility, in this direction. We had some concerns at first about that, just working in with the existing corporate development that's going to be forthcoming here. But I think as we started playing with and doing certain things, we were able to, we feel, accomplish, putting a food service facility and taking an IT building and kind of blending it with this facility to kind of make it more, look not quite as industrial and bring it more to what the surrounding areas was probably planned out to be, a corporate type of layout. So that's what we've done. We've kind of incorporated that and kind of, that's what we're going to present to y'all tonight. And you want to kind of shoot some photos or? Yeah. And look, look, this is the thing between you and I. You can chime in anytime you want to.
Sure. So we'll kind of switch over just to give y'all some photos of the existing facility, just so if anybody hasn't visited there, just to get an idea of what that looks like.
You can go to there. So we did a visit to the site and kind of visited what was.
So this is, I think, the existing cooler.
Right.
Facilities. I'll just kind of scan through these real quick.
That's a cooler, that's a freezer.
That's Philippe.
Yeah. Felt like ball head. Freezer, freezer. So there was a few reasons why we went to go see. One of the main things was to just kind of verify the existing conditions, what kind of cooler freezers they had, the existing pallet count, if any pallets are actually involved in the existing facility as compared to what we're proposing in the new facility.
This is in the dry goods storage areas.
And as you can, so you can tell some of these pallets are stacked up too high. That's the way they have them palleted right now. That's something that can always be changed to do. The two pallet stack can become a individual two pallet stack to work into the new storage layout that we have in the plan. So you can tell, I mean, they're doing and they can do with what they have, but it would be nice to be able to move forward with just kind of something nice for the parish.
So this is heat Delta.
Okay.
Nice enough to guide our tour.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Those freezer units and refrigerator units, will they be moved to the new facility?
No, sir.
Or will remain mean there?
Well, we have a new one that's proposed in the facility. Okay. And right now, where y'all have 2 freezers, 1 cooler, we have, 1 cooler and 1 freezer. And with the storage itself, that will accommodate more storage than what y'all have present right now.
How old are these? Yeah, I do.
Okay?
Is this same order?
They're
Yeah.
10 to 12 years old.
Yeah.
The cooler is an older facility, and all you have is that small door that you can walk in with a dolly and that's it.
Right.
The current freezer, you can drive in it with a forklift, but you can only put 1 pallet high.
Right.
When they get further into there, you're gonna see that the new cooler and freezer setup, you can actually drive into the freezer with a forklift. It's much taller, so you can put multiple pallets, and it's big enough to put racks in there, where you can turn the forklift and put something on a rack and stack up to 3 high.
So this current facility will be used like a sub area?
Well, everything is still in working order. That facility does have a generator. It's all older. So what I had in mind was that would be a backup facility for dry goods storage, things that you can hold for longer periods of time. You will maintain the facility. And like the cooler and freezer, as long as they're operable and not too expensive to repair, you can maintain them as a backup facility. In a hurricane, if you get schools that go out of electricity, it's additional capacity to store things. Both of the trucks, the new freezer truck we just bought, both of them are capable of being plugged into shore power. So you have that as additional capacity too after a hurricane or some natural disaster. So you'd be at a point there where, there's no losing any food. You have a place that is powered by a generator that is on city natural gas that you can bring food to. So there shouldn't be any loss of food with that.
Is this with climate control?
No, it's not.
The new one will be?
You do it a little bit, yes, sir.
Now, on this one right here, did we add some more air conditioners to it this year?
It's
I'm
not,
not aware of them.
it's not, I mean, when I was, it's not climate
Because
control.
I know when I passed a couple of times, like, it was telling me that it was really hot and like the air conditioner wasn't cooling in there. And like today, when I passed earlier in the morning, I think like the freezer had like a big thing of ice in front of it.
And that's part of the reason for the new facility. As new code comes in, you're gonna be required to have climate control storage for your food.
Okay,
So this new building is climate controlled.
right. But because it was so hot this summer, don't you think we need to probably maybe add some more air conditioners right there to that one?
That would be a possibility at some point, depending on the type of use that we have and how often you access the building.
But are we gonna still keep food there?
Probably not. It would be more for longer term storage, other items, maybe furniture, things like that.
Okay.
The stuff that you're gonna move in and out on a regular basis would all be in this new facility. Food and other computers and items like that, that you're gonna be moving in and out more often would be here. Things that would be in long-term storage for months or years would be in that building. You're gonna keep the facility and maintain it, but you're not gonna be in and out of it every day like you are now.
Okay.
What do we do with, like, all the paper towels?
A lot of that is delivered to the school when it comes in, and, I know they do have some storage, and as it comes in, a lot of it is delivered to the school. We do have some on hand when they run out, that we can deliver.
Let me ask you a question. And I see this delivering to other areas in the Acadian area. Like at Lafayette Parish, they have one central location for shipping and receiving. And you could probably control a lot of the theft that goes on, because there is some that goes on. And what I mean by that is, you always have 10 cases of paper towel that is going to school X, and when it gets to school X, only 8 show up. You know, it's happening. You know, it is It is what it is.
That's kind of the reason for this here. It's centrally located in the parish, it's much larger. It would be a lot easier to operate from after a hurricane or natural disaster or a pandemic, anything like that. You have, it's bigger, but what's better about it is it's taller, and then when he gets to the point where he shows you the interior of the building,
Right.
it's designed, you know, the rack setting in there is designed for additional storage. You can put a lot of stuff in a smaller area, and then there's, when you're loading and unloading the truck, there's a place for you to take stuff out and put it down, and continue unloading the truck, and then start everything out and put it in the rack, and have it, you know, you can have all your vegetables in one area, all your canned goods in another area. The freezer and cooler that are set up so that there's an area nearby where you can drop all your cold items. You open the door, you open it, put your stuff in, and close it. You're not going back and forth to the truck and having people leave the door open or get down and open and close the door.
What is square footage of this one?
The base bid, which is the warehouse area, is 7,700 square feet.
This one right here,
Oh, this one?
I don't know.
Oh, no, not, oh,
The old one is in your home.
no,
Yeah,
well,
old one.
I don't know.
I'm not sure. The old-
The new one is 77.
7,700 square feet for the warehouse area. The area is designated for food storage, food service. Because we have an alternate part of planners for the IT, another alternate part of the.
You know, IT, you go with IT.
Oh, we can, yeah, oh, yeah, this is just the beginning. We just-
Is there room to grow?
Yes, there is. There is room as well.
So, if you wanna go to the site plan, kind of get down.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can go to site plan. Okay. So this is the site plan. You don't have much color, huh? That's okay. All right. This is the site plan. If you look to the left, the bottom left of the plan right here, you'll see that little smaller section. That's the IT department. And it's actually situated on this support side of the building, so you can access it from there. You can get to the existing, school board office that's there. The center part that goes up and down, thank you. That is the food service warehouse. And then to the right here, is the storage area, that'd be like for books and other type of paper goods too as well.
How did the IT get into it? I thought it was supposed to be the bus, shop that was supposed to be there with the,
Well, in order to put the bus shop there,
uh-huh.
you're talking about a really big building and stuff, that's way outside of the funding source that we have. Right now, IT is housed on that end of the building, and they're using that, what was supposed to be the PD lab, they're using that as their work area, where they repair computers and store computers. So in discussing all of this, we can't afford with the funds that we have to put a bus shop in. We need millions more, but we can add this little thing right here to provide them a couple of offices and some workspace to free up the PD lab so that we can do training sessions in there.
Right. That's good.
So just,
And
to
then just to
kind
kind
of orient y'all.
Right. Go ahead.
This is the facility that we're in right now. See where my cursor's hovering there?
That's this group.
And then as you come down corporate, this is the turnaround here, kind of cutting off, but that's, you can see there, that's where the existing turnaround is. So this facility would share the overflow parking with your current existing parking lot. The IT would be accessed from the parking lot here, and then all of the deliveries for both IT and for food service would come down this shared drive with enough turning radius to get a delivery vehicle to be able to turn around, not backing up off the street. They can come in, turn around, back into either a truck well on this side or a dock that'll be at grade. And as we get into the site, floor plan, you'll see a little bit closer scale of that. But just the rest of the site, this is that existing drainage detention pond that services this facility. We're actually going to stay away from that altogether and create a new detention facility just for this building so that we're not interfering with any drainage calculations that need to be done on the north end of the site. coming in with maybe some landscaping trees up at the front just to kind of soften it up. And you'll see again in the 3D and the elevation images, kind of how that's all working together. I'll kind of go into the floor plan.
Yeah.
I have a question. Do we have room for our maintenance coming in that area one day? We decide to go and do that?
There is, I'm not sure if there's room back there or not. You got a nice piece of property right here. We're gonna do have a lot in the
Right
front.
next to Charlie T's. Right on the side of Charlie T's, kind of, that's all.
Oh,
We have a lot in front right here we own, and a lot right behind the other building that we own as well as the side.
okay.
So that's kind of small scale, it's a little bit hard to see, but the three colored regions, we've kind of identified as the gold being the base bid being the dry goods warehouse, freezer, cooler, the truck well, the access drive, and the loading dock and receiving areas. And then on this backside, you also have mechanical space for your air conditioning, janitor's closet, shop manager's office, and a restroom facility for the folks that will be working here. The first alternate bid would be the pink area, which is what we're describing as the full IT offices. You have an IT workroom, you have an office space for two individuals, their own restroom, mechanical closet, and janitor's closet, off of a small lobby. And again, this would be accessed from the existing parking lot that connects to this facility. And then the second alternate would be this light blue area. And just from a constructability standpoint, we set up the building to where if the base bid was only taken from a construction standpoint, it'd be very easy to break these areas out and with very little interference of the circulation of all the parts. So we could possibly take the gold and the pink and it will still function, or we could take all three, or we could just take the gold. And so you can see the access drive that I was describing on the site plan. You have a truck well. This would be for larger vehicles with a 48-inch drop here to a loading dock with an adjustable tongue that could accommodate several different types of vehicles. And then this lane just to the right of it would actually be all of the same grade. So if you have a smaller vehicle, pickup truck or a smaller box truck, a forklift could actually come out here on the loading dock and pick that out and you'll be all level there. Because of USDA requirements, there was a request that we have some square footage for potentially storing books and custodial supplies and that sort of thing, but because of USDA requirements to keep those items separate from food service, the blue area is self-contained. Again, that's the second alternate of this piece. You have a shared loading off of the loading dock that shares with the receiving area and the food service. You also have an overhead door off of that dock. So you can keep all those materials completely separate from any food items that will be coming into the facility. You also, once you get inside, you have two overhead doors, personnel door here to get to the dock. And then once you're inside the receiving area, you have another overhead door here where you gain access into the dry storage warehouse. And you kind of see we have a very wide 16-foot clear aisles, which we found from visiting other facilities to be the standard for safety and maneuverability of the forklift. On this aisle, you'll notice we have two sets of double stacking racks that Mr. Al was referring to. We have a couple of schematic drawings of those also to get into, we can show y'all, but basically these racks are back-to-back pallets that have a sliding mechanism that would allow for the forklift operator to push one load up at the front, and if they have to come in and stack another one, they lift it up and then push the front one to the backside and it locks in place. This assembly really gives us a lot of flexibility with the floor space. As you can see on the other aisle, we have more of a traditional, just a standard single rack. But again, with the 16-foot clearance between, the double racks allow us to save a lot of floor space, both in the dry goods area and also in the freezer. So you can see we're utilizing that same spacing, 16-foot clear with the forklift coming in. No threshold, no lift, elevated floor or anything like that. You're able to drive the forklift straight in to the double racks on each side, plenty of maneuverability. And then on the opposite side, the cooler is a little bit smaller. But from our data that we gathered from other facilities and the way that St. Martin Parish is currently using their cooler setup is that there is no racks in the cooler at all. They're lay down space, so they come in here with either a pallet jack or a forklift and drop these down individually. And you can see just with these footprints that we have the numbers here. So your existing dry goods facility is has the capacity of about 125 pallets. This new facility has 144 pallet capacity with what's currently shown, not counting any of these sort of auxiliary laydown areas that could be used for staging, pulling stuff in and out of the cooler as you see fit. And then for future expansion, you have plenty of room to add in more racks if need be. So just to kind of go over it again, so y'all have 125 currently dry goods, and we're gonna go to 144 with 3 stacks high. Your current cooler, which is 13 by 13, has a capacity of about 6 pallets. Our cooler is gonna be 18 by 27, and it'll have a capacity of 16 pallets. So we're going from 6 to 16 on the cooler, and then on the freezer, we're going from 44 to 72. So in all 3 of these spaces, we're increasing the capacity, and we also have potential for future expansion if need be. Kind of moving more to the outside, the equipment areas out here, which is the equipment yard, which would contain the condensers for both the cooler and the freezer. We've met with a cooler and freezer consultant, and they suggested that a typical setup for this sort of facility would have a redundant condenser for each, the freezer and the cooler. So that's these 4 pieces of equipment that you're seeing along right here. So that in the event that one of these were to go out, the other one automatically picks up and keeps the cooling going on. Main distribution panel for the building, gas power generator for the whole facility, and the transformer pad would actually all be located in this exterior equipment yard adjacent to the IT facility. So kind of going into the IT, there would be an access door between the dry goods warehouse and into the IT facility, and then out to the parking lot. If you come down the hall here, you have your restroom, janitor closet, mechanical space for air conditioning equipment. Come down a little further, you got your office space for 2 workers. And then this open air space would be for its IT workroom. Has overhead doors and a covering over the top of that so that you can get deliveries backing in off of the access drive. This will be sort of a workroom for all the IT folks, and we also provided storage for them in there and lay down space if they need as well. Kind of talked about the blue, but this is the square footage breakdown of all 3 of these spaces that also correlate to the cost estimate that we'll show y'all in a little bit. I think that's pretty much it, Philippe.
Well, let me just explain one thing. So somebody asked him again who we're gonna be getting to do cooler and freezer, and the question was yes. And the freezer that we have there, it's like the floor system is gonna be some heated wire type and conduit. We have a double stack insulated floor system. So that's what's gonna be taking place inside the freezer, so you don't have to have this uneven type of approach when you come in there with the forklift. It's just a level, come right off the floor into the freezer area. And all that, so when we show you the estimate, all that cost and everything is what was estimated into the job and the cost to do the product. And we have the horizontal sliding doors that allow it to be clear, to get inside there with forklifts to do what they got to do to stack the material.
Right, so that's essentially a safety factor built into the foundation of specifically the freezer. Because with these types of facilities, the temperature in the freezer gets so cold that moisture can condense underneath the slab and actually heave the slab up and damage the structure of the foundation. So there's sort of two approaches that you can take, one being the electrical coils that Philippe just mentioned, the other being a sort of a passive ventilation system, which would be pipes that would be looped underneath the slab and on the exterior of the building to make sure that you don't get that freeze if there were to be any condensation buildup below the slab. So again, both of those being priced into the estimate that we're gonna show y'all. I'm gonna kind of go down into the.
Do you have a generator?
Yes, it is a generator. Right there.
So where's the office for the food service?
There is an office, much.
So I know that you said, IT, but
So food service, they've got some offices in the back there for the,
for the food service
Yeah.
right there?
food service, yes, ma'am.
Y'all were awarded the bid?
I'm sorry?
Were y'all awarded the bid?
We're the architects.
The
working,
architect?
We're just presenting this to us as a
And
proposal.
who you're with?
Poche Pruitt.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
So you have bathrooms there for the,
Yes, they are there, yes,
for the food service?
yes. Watch. Can you bring
Let
that?
me see if I can start to zoom this
It's a
in.
little small, but yes, we have a bathroom in the back there. for food service.
I'd just like to interject a couple of other things, while we have a little break.
Yeah.
We've enlarged in capacity.
Right.
One of, and it is just what it is. Our student enrollment has gone down. And basically this is pertaining to food. And we're gonna have less kids, and the way it's going is we're gonna have less kids as we get older. Because it's just a fact of life, because people are homeschooling, they're sending them to private schools or charter schools.
Right.
And we're in a desegregation case, running people out left and right. I mean, so my big question is, did we overbuild? You know, that's just a question, did we, and from that sense, because I don't think we're gonna get any more kids unless we can turn some things around.
Right.
And did we look at possibly refurbishing that existing facility where it's at?
Well, no, I mean, our person did not even address that.
Okay.
Person, no.
You may not have even been accident, you know.
The old building doesn't have, I mean,
It's got the old building's got some issues with it. Height wise is one of the biggest issues with it, because you really can't stack it.
I'll be honest, I've never seen the building.
Yeah.
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 it's also landmark.
Yeah.
What you got there, it's all.
Okay. That's just a couple of questions.
No, that's why I'm here. That's the question. Yeah. I'll do my best I can answer them.
That's all you can do.
Yeah.
I got a question about the IT.
Yes, sir.
The facility here is no longer big enough for the IT department, or are we just expanding?
The building here, when this building was built, you had desktop computers at the schools. They went to the schools, they stayed at the schools. Now that you've gone one-to-one with Chromebooks, they're coming in and out from the stairs more, they're shipped here, all the programs are loaded on here, and then they're delivered out to the schools. Okay? So they have to have more room now to work on those devices. Okay? So that it's basically a shift in the way things are done. When it was all desktops, they serviced them at the school, they were delivered directly to the students. So we've gone from having a few thousand devices to having 13 to 14,000 devices. So you have 4 computer techs, 4 including Josh. So right now, we don't have an available office in this building. Pretty much every office is occupied, and the professional development lab that we mentioned to the other end is that workspace. So and most of this is paid for through ESSER funds. So when we started talking about the food service facility, you know, at one time, we envisioned just one building, where you can't put your food and your dry goods, your textbooks and stuff like that in the same building. By code now, you have to separate that. So that's where the blue building comes in. And then we have an opportunity here to put a little lean-to or whatever you want to call it off on the side of the building. And then take some of the, free up some offices in here as well as a PD lab. So, you know, I use it as an opportunity to try to handle that issue or deal with that issue while we have extra funds to do it. And,
Well, my concern was, okay, put the IT there. Did they look at possibly adding on to this building?
we could. There's two things. Number one, that construction is probably gonna be more expensive because this isn't metal building.
Gotcha.
Second thing is,
Electrical?
no, this building is paid for with ESSER funds. If I add it up to that building, will be- if I buy into this building,
You don't get it. I got you. I got
because it's all allocated toward that facility. Now, when they get to the funding part of it, ESSER does not cover the entire cost, at least the projected cost. And so that's why we have it broken out into a base bid and two alternates. We put it out for bid, see what the numbers are, and we determine what we want to pay for outside of ESSER. So it's why we broke it out that way. It gives the board options that you can look at, you can determine what you want, you know.
So I think is the, IT department, blue is dry goods, correct?
And the reason we did the dry goods separately, the worst case scenario, we can't afford to do that, or we decide not to do that, you do have that other warehouse.
That's what I was about to say.
So
Once that warehouse is vacated and everything comes here, we have that facility over there that utilized for books and stuff, for storage.
it would be preferable to have everything centrally located while you have bulk of the funds paid for by non-local funds. But in pinch, you do have that other facility you can rely on.
So that's the funds is gonna pay for the blue part?
Not for all of it. It pays for basically the gold part. Okay, not 100% of it, but pretty close to 100%. And the driveway and all of that kind of stuff. The other thing, again, when we put it out for bid, we have cost estimates. Okay, based on current square footage cost and material and supply costs. When you put it out for bid, it could come in higher, it could come in lower. So when you put it out for public bid, remember, all these contractors are competing against each other, so they're gonna try to beat each other out. So the hope is it will come in a little under the estimated cost.
Mr. Blanchard, can I make a statement? Sure. In regards to the dry goods, not the food, the dry goods, which presently being used in St. Martinville, in the event that you do the total in-house turnkey job in this manner, if you're concerned about the use of the old facility in St. Martinville, we have no storage space at this present time you're limited in on-campus storage space. So therefore, it's being brought upon maintenance. We don't want to throw it away, find a place for it. We filled up the 3 JSEP, the old JSEP by the CCRC, that's being utilized. We have no additional storage space. So if your concern is, what are we gonna do with that facility and that square footage? It will be utilized within the parish, all across the parish as a storage facility for a need that is currently needed.
Do you know the square footage of it?
No, that can be readily, but it's probably a little bit larger than what we have here. However, there again, whatever is going to be transferred and used here as an all-in-one facility can be utilized by the entire parish and all 3 districts in St. Martinville. And even to the point where, if you want to segregate it to the point of districts, this is the north end of the parish, this is Burbridge, this is St. Martinville, to separate your individual, if the schools have certain needs and have certain units and items, it can even be separated into that.
Right.
Just to bring to your attention that question.
The maintenance department also could utilize it as if they're building something for a school, like shelves, cabinets and all that. They can make like a little shop instead of having to come all the way back over here and do their shop work, you know? They could bring their tools and just do something over there. It would eliminate that. Another question, the driveway. I drive trucks.
Yeah.
I don't know, that don't look too healthy. You ever seen the radius it takes to turn an 18-wheeler? And the drivers we have today? It's gonna be rough.
Well, the radiuses we put on there were correct. I'm not talking about the drop.
Well,
But, yeah, the radiuses we show are correct. But I know how that goes, you know.
oh, yeah.
When you cut that thing, you shove it up. And
Oh, yeah, you're gonna tear up all the ground.
So just for reference, this is a 65-foot long truck. And I think we had looked up by Louisiana law, that's the longest that a semi-truck and trailer can be. And recommended 50-foot turning radius for that type of a vehicle. And we realize it's probably gonna be a combination of, Cisco trucks,
Right.
smaller box vehicles, and, delivery pickups and that sort of thing. So we wanted to accommodate for several different style vehicles.
And wasn't sure the worst case
The
scenario.
yeah, absolutely, the worst,
Two
the
large
biggest
trucks in there.
type of vehicle that you would get on the site.
I love the truck 65-foot. We would barely get that.
We don't get that.
I don't know.
Well, your box, the longest box you can get is 53 foot. You know,
Most of our deliveries come in medium-sized trucks.
So
not that
that's
short.
short.
Yeah. Cisco truck's a lot shorter, it's
Yeah.
a single axle, if it's a single axle truck, they turn a lot shorter. You know.
and the seat, yeah,
A single axle, that's been around since
While you're doing it, you build it, or
Or a big,
you do get a big one.
Right.
And you know, there had some surveyors out there across the street the other day. I don't know what's going on there, but I know the property's for sale. And Calres also own across the canal. So at some point, that's gonna be extended out and developed. So in meeting with Mr. Philippe and Mr. Jim and everybody in this process, you know, we tried to design it, okay, 20 years from now, if this is all full of businesses or whatever, you're not gonna want an 18-wheeler stuck in the middle of the road.
Right.
So that's why it was designed this way. With the current facility we have, when they come in and deliver, those guys are having to try to back in, they're at an angle, they're on a small street, there's no truck well, the forklift's gotta get out there. This way right here, they can drive in the truck with the forklift if they need to. You got a truck well, and you know, that truck bed's gonna be level with the ground, so it's a lot more convenient. They're unloading in a covered area, you can unload it almost any weather. There's places for them to grab a pallet and put it down, come back, grab another one, put it down. And then when the truck leaves, the guys can take their time and sort it out and put everything in the racks by category. The racks that Philippe was talking about, I didn't go on the visit, but I think Pete, you went with them, and they went to 2, 3 other facilities, and other school boards are using those kind of racks. It's not a brand new thing. They've been in use for some time, they last, they don't break. When they do break, you aren't able to repair them. You know, it's not like a brand new thing that might go away. It's been in use for some time.
Well, we can bring up a picture, we can bring up a schematic of that.
They put some thought into it, and we've had a lot of discussion on trying to make it the most efficient possible. The original drawing that Mr. Grisha turned in actually had more square footage than this, but by using these kind of systems, it allows you to make it small.
one other question, the dumpster rack, we got to have that fenced in, right?
Yeah, it is fenced. We show
That
them.
was that little square you saw right to the side of the truck.
Nowadays, it has to be fenced in.
Right. So this is a frontal view of the racks that we're talking about. Stacked 3 high, and this is a section showing you how it kind of works when you slide it in. You've got a little tilt like that, so they call it a glide in type of rack system. And that's the kind of rack system we have considered.
when our forklift operator destroys one of them, how expensive is it to replace?
We have $100,000
This is gonna happen. I mean,
y'all had confidence in the forklift
no,
driver?
I don't, I mean, today's work is not. And I speak that to the whole workforce.
I mean, it's nothing more than just sticking, the pallets on a shelf, it's just that these are just tilted a little bit, and it gravitates back to the back of the drive system.
Well, people rush a lot of times, that's what I'm, you know, so.
And to that point, you know, the 16-foot clearance is something that when we spoke with, we went to the Diocese of Lafayette's food service facility. We also visited Ascension Parish's food service facility, which is a brand new facility. I think it was done in 2020. And one of the main comments that the operators at both of those facilities said is having a good, clear aisle width between the stacks is critical. Really good LED lighting to where you can see where you're going. We also have safety bollards kind of around especially around the cooler freezer areas. And, but really that 16-foot width is something that both of those operators said they wish they could have had, but they were limited, just constrained by their own situation and their own site conditions. So that to address, you know, some people are better drivers than others.
Right, and
you know.
accidents do happen.
Of course.
So we do have diamond plate all the way around, where the forklifts in the group, to prevent them from, you know, sticking a fork through the wall or too cool.
So
That was something that the police requested and they included in there.
So this, just to kind of recap, so that's a 16-foot aisle width on either side, and you also have it in the freezer area, again with the double racks. And in the cooler, these are just lay down space. And on the cooler aisle side, you have a single, more traditional style racks. And these kind of pallets that are shown here, just like I said, just kind of lay down space for taking it off, putting it down, pulling something out, putting it on the ground, and being able to maneuver. So plenty of space to get around with either a pallet jack or forklift. And then these are sliding doors protected by some steel bollards in the ground. And I actually think we might even look at some guardrails as
There's
well.
like a horizontal guardrail in front of it, cooler freezer.
So where would be the expansion if they have to expand?
Well, we can expand, so this way, we can expand on the left-hand side,
Left-hand side.
along the building, that way.
One person might later and have more office space you could there. And over on the right-hand side where the truck turnaround is, there is some space there.
Right.
Let's say you want to put a mechanic shop for the buses or something eventually, you could do something there, or additional maintenance facility. You know, but either one, maintenance or bus shop, you do own a lot in front right here, and one right there, right behind the other building. So, what we currently own, you have room for future expansion.
Is there floor drains in the concrete, like for spillage? That would have-
We would have some, yeah. We would have some. You wanna go to the,
Go ahead. Elevations.
yeah, go to the elevation. So this is a straight on shot from the street, that's showing you, you can still pick look like right there.
The enclosed dumpster
Right.
area. Let's see.
For the pit area, what are you gonna put? Cement walls
So the
or
right-
where the truck goes down in the pit
Yeah,
area?
it's gonna be some.
Cement walls on each side?
There's some guardrails on.
Guardrail.
There's no drainage, right?
Yeah, that's right. Trench drain.
Not to be like the exit in Mississippi.
No.
I'm just asking, I mean.
No. It's just a
All good? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And that was one question Mr. Creature had, but we explained, it's not an expense, when it goes out, it's not
It's not fun following those things.
No, this is a shot from the rear of the building.
So this is the main facility, the high-end building.
Right.
So essentially, this building is a pre-engineered metal warehouse, about 60 by 40 feet. And this is looking from the back, so a little slight lean-to right here for your mechanical space and your office space for the food service. And then this is the extension for the dry goods storage, which will house the custodial and books, if that alternative would be taken.
That'd be from DE, and that that section, which you see between, what is it, B and C? What is that? Yeah, B and, no, B and D. That would be the backside of the dock area, covered the receiving area.
This is kind of looking from the parking lot, across the parking lot where we are to the entry to the IT, and from the building to the side. So Corporate Boulevard would be on your right in this view. Tree line would be on your left. And then this is the other direction, looking back from the roundabout. So we're looking towards the facility that we're in now. This being the books and custodial storage, this being the big main warehouse, and this is the IT. And you can kind of see it covered. Overhead door with dollars protecting the columns and extruded aluminum canopy to cover the personnel door and the overhead door. And then this is the equipment yard, which we're kind of playing with potentially being something more breathable than solid brick. Either a nice chain link or maybe we had talked about doing like some open air brick pavers or something. That's for more construction documents down the line.
Yeah, the section.
Yeah, this is a building section. So this is a cut through the building, kind of showing you the heights of some of the ceiling areas. So this is the IT space, which would be a steel barge arch structure with a flat roof. Mechanical equipment all be located on the interior, so we wouldn't have anything on the roof. This is the high building, big warehouse at a 20-foot bearing height. This is your cooler with a 12-foot finished ceiling height and your freezer with a 17-foot clearance height.
Right.
That will allow us to get 3 stacks high in that rack diagram that we were looking at earlier. So we get 3 stacks on each side in here. And then again, in the cooler, it will just be pallets down on the ground.
Got a quick question.
Yeah.
It said flat,
Well, it's gonna have a tape to it. It won't be flat. Yeah.
you don't have a tape.
Yeah, we'll have a tape on.
Yeah, you can
Tape
kind
on
of
this
see
one, roof drains.
this tapered insulation with some roof drains.
Everybody else is flat roofs, but it won't be flat.
Yeah, it's like-
Everybody else references that it's flat roofs, but it won't be flat. Like it is.
I have another kind of cut through. That's just looking at the, so this is cut the opposite way. This would be where a semi truck or a delivery truck would be backing up underneath this canopy. We extended the roof overhang about 4 feet so that when a vehicle is backed up into the truck well, if it's in a heavy rain, you'll get a good bit of coverage on that tailgate so that you're not getting any wind-blown rain. And again, this is the loading dock, which is it's an exterior covered space. You have a pass-through door, and then you get into the receiving area right there.
Now backing in, is there enough space on each side? Make sure there's no accident, take out the doors.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll go back to
Go
the
back.
floor plan.
Yeah.
Kind of zoom in on that area. So the truck well is, I don't have a dimension on it, I think it's 75 by 15 foot clear on the interior. And then this lane, which is all that grade, is at 15 feet wide as well. With a 12-inch concrete retaining wall all the way around that will be protected by some guardrails. And I think actually we were looking at some other facilities that have a barrier here with like a chain, yellow safety chain that is hung whenever you don't have deliveries in place just to keep people from going over the edge. We lifted up this column right here that you'll see in elevation up on a concrete footing, so that if there is a vehicle that somehow manages to, or a forklift, that gets a little bit too close, you won't damage your column, you'll kind of be hitting the concrete footing. And you can see right here, this is that overhang line that I was talking about, that 4 foot.
Oh, okay. We gotta rush it up. Okay, we gotta move forward. Go to,
You want to get into the estimate?
yeah, we can do that. Let's go do that. You wanna go break it down?
So again, just Just, the estimate's all based off of these three colored areas, so the gold being the base bid, the pink being alternate 1, and the blue being alternate 2. We did a cost breakdown for all those individual areas.
Do we have a date?
Yeah.
Will we have a date for this? Did you bring it?
No, I was thinking we could have something on the screen,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
thinking of the city.
Yeah, I'm blind.
Can you get a little bit bigger? This is based on the scope, I mean, if you want to you want to go through the scope real fast, or you just want to go?
We got about
Okay.
6 minutes.
At 6 minutes, all right. So we got a scope of work that we can get to, Mr. Allen, he can get sent out to y'all. That's a scope of work which included in the estimate. It talks about the finishes and so on and so forth. And we have that for base bid, we have that for alternate 1, we have it for alternate 2. Okay. Can you get, okay, bring that up. All right. So the way we have, can you get up a little higher? You can talk about the estimate stuff at the top. Okay, that's good right there. All right. So the way it's kind of broken down, and we worked with a contractor, so this is kind of estimated based on today's cost. The first column where it says base bid is delineated what's to the left-hand side, tells you what it is. We got the cost, it kind of comes down base bid wise, and we got, so right now, the construction cost that we have estimated for base bid is 2.250 million to do that. To do alternate number 1 is about $500,000, and to do about alternate 2, about $250,000, for a total of about $3 million to do base, alternate 1, and alternate 2. Below that, over and above the construction costs, we just went ahead and put in numbers in here to talk about what was going to be like professional fees and allowances, along with soil survey, borings, and to project like a total cost. And that total cost would be about a total of about 2.5 and a 564, is it 554 and 276.5 for a total of 3.305. For that, it gives you a little breakdown of what the square footage cost is per individual thing, for an average of about 265 square foot.
You're gonna do the board testing first,
Huh?
You're gonna do the board testing.
Oh, yeah, we already had that scheduled to get that done. So just real fast, I know we gotta go, but you can see, we have like a cooler freezer combo and all that, that's already, we got that cost into the project. The racking system, they have an allowance of $100,000 for the rack system. So we kind of picked up and delineate everything like that, and these are some updated pricing that we did, like I said, with the general contractor. So this is where we are.
Do we have contingency fees in there? No?
Well, I think we got in the professional fees and allowances, we got.
Yeah, okay, so that's what
So that's a real fast brush on what we've been coming up with, and that's it. I guess we'll open any questions, and I'm sorry it took so long.
Okay, item 3D, consider and all recommend action with regard to allowing staff to proceed with the bid processing of the new food service business.
Question. Would it be a problem? How much of a problem would it be for us? Because I'd like to look over this information
Okay.
and come back and vote on it at the December meeting. Would that be a big problem?
Right now, the state is requesting an extension of the expenditure of ESSER funds, I think an 18-month, 14-month extension. Currently, all funds have to be expended by the end of September 2024. So right now, we're about 20 months out from that. So one more month, make that big of a difference in.
No, I mean, that's what y'all need.
They're looking at 19 months. instead of
We just want to look at it as, you know.
It's a big decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real big.
We could put it back on the.
Back on the meeting.
Probably when we have our education committee meeting.
Okay, so we're gonna postpone this about.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Adjourn.
Thank you for the.
Motion.
No change taken by Mr. Cody, meeting adjourned.
Comment? Yes, sir. 5 minutes.
You said that long. His speech.
Oh, no, very, very short.
in the office, run the office? Nobody? Okay, we move on to any deletion or addition to the agenda. If not, on the consent agenda, do any items need to be discussed or removed for discussion? If not, we have a motion by Mr. Forte, second by Mr. Cleese. Vote. Standing nay, the motion carries. Finance Committee recommendation, item A to be. Move to accept. Motion by Mr. Evans, second by Mr. Forte, vote. Standing nay on the motion, the motion carries. Item 5, item A, is consider or approve head start policy council recommendation. PC minutes, 09/26/22, new hire recommendation, Ms. Angel.
So we had our policy council meeting, and you have the minutes in front of you, as long as we have recommendations that we have for open positions.
Your motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Forte, second by Mr. Vito. All in favor, vote. No nays, motion carried. Item 5B, consider approved policy regarding cameras in the special education classroom settings. Ms. Jordan.
Basically, it's a policy that the state, really it's a revision to a policy, but now that the state has given us an allocation to fund the policy, we must put this policy in place no later than December 31st. And basically is cameras in the self-contained classrooms in our schools. But however, parents must request the cameras prior to placing them in the classrooms. So basically, we received an allocation of about $68,539. LA One Connect came and did a needs assessment for us in all our self-contained classrooms, which was an estimate of $28,021. So we will have a remaining balance in case for maintenance or whatever, if the cameras are placed in the classrooms. Again, parents must request the cameras in order for them to be placed in the classrooms.
Okay, with a self-contained class, how many children do we usually have?
It's usually less than between at least 10.
So would one parent request another 9?
We have to place it into,
So you just have to have one?
that's it, just
Okay.
one.
And that's a process.
Yeah, but we do have a policy, of course, you all have it in your packet, of what we're going to follow. Okay?
Move to accept. Okay, we got a motion by Mr. Evans, second by Ms. Vito. Vote. Any nays? The motion carries. Item C, that's additional listening session in San Martinville. I wasn't at the session, I had something very important that came up that day. So, it's up to the board member who was there. If the board members were there. I have a question. What's your name now?
Eleanor?
Your last name, Ms.
Baptiste.
Yeah, Ms. Baptiste. I do have a question for you, because you brought it up I just have a question. Why, because she recommended at the Catahoula meeting and at the, Robert's High meeting, to have another one. What was the difference you found between the San Martinville session and the other 2 sessions? Because
I found that the presentation done by Martin was misleading and information was left out. And also we sent questions, the questions were not answered that were sent online. And we had actual questions and they were skipped over or just brushed and turned to another subject. So it was more or less what attorneys would use, pivoting.
okay, well, Ms. Eleanor Baptiste, you have a card, so you can come up.
Okay,
with that.
well,
She answered the question,
Yeah,
because she was the one who had the problem at the meetings. And I just felt that we covered the same repetitive information and I don't know about the questions. I can't answer what they had in front of them, the attorneys, But I can say that the information I heard from meetings 1, 2, and 3, and I'm sure it's gonna be the same thing tomorrow night, is gonna be repetitive. Now, I'll admit, she was more confident at the meeting in Catalina and Road Bridge, because I think she was, prepared better.
But
The first one,
being that
because we had more questions at the San Martin meeting, that's what I couldn't get over, because
because you didn't answer the questions that were online, and then they ended up asking you the questions in person.
well, she can actually answer that again, tomorrow night,
Well, Mr. Morgan, if I may,
please.
I'm in charge,
Yeah,
of-
you-
I'm in
there you
charge,
go.
I'm in charge of the portal. I printed the questions out and provided the questions to the attorneys 2 or 3 days ahead of time. The attorneys had the questions in front of them. What happened is the discussions changed and were different because you had people, everybody was allowed to
Right.
speak from where they were. But those questions were being answered as she was discussing, because I vetted the questions, so I know that they were being answered.
So you feel
So
that
it was a large amount of questions, but the questions were being answered, but everybody was being given the opportunity to speak. In the other 2 sessions, you had a smaller number of questions that were submitted, and that's why it appeared that those questions were being answered differently than they were in the St. Martinsville session. But in the St. Martinsville session, we had a multitude of questions that were being asked because it was the initial meeting. But I could tell you that the questions were answered, but again, it was almost an open forum in that meeting because people were allowed to stand up from where they were and speak.
because
So,
they had
and there was no time limit on the
acknowledging
amount of
their
time
names.
that they could
Were the
speak.
online questions answered?
It was the online questions that I provided to the attorneys. That was the questions that were on the legal sheets because I printed those out.
So you feel that those questions were,
I felt that they were answered because I remember reading through the questions. There were some questions, and not that it matters. There were questions that didn't have anything to do with the case, that those were vetted. But I'm not gonna go into detail about those questions because it's not even related to this, but those questions were vetted, but because it had nothing to do with, I'll just use the example. One dealt with the lunch, that the lunches were horrible at one particular school. Not even the school that we were discussing. So we vetted that question out because it really had nothing to do with what we were discussing. So.
well, and then the other thing is, if it's online, Ms. Baptiste, if it's online, they can put them online again for tomorrow or at the city, and those questions, they can do it again, if it's online question. But
Well-
as far as just going back to San Martinville, I mean, it's gonna be repetitive.
But in light of that, it should have been expected that the crowd would be larger because it was concerning those people.
And I agree with that. That's
So
why
that should
I
have been
took my time to
something
go
that
there
should have been
to hear.
considered.
And trust me, I think everybody feels the same way, whether you're black or white. I think we all have it,
Exactly, but as
because we are saying,
you all are
we are saying one
paid
thing.
elected officials to represent the people of the communities that you were voted in for.
I
So
agree.
if it needed to be a little bit longer, the meeting was closed and questions were still being asked.
I disagree with that because I was the one that was in charge of the meeting because Mr. Poche wasn't there and I'm the one that had called for the vote and everything. And I felt that every question was being asked and answered because the one thing that I felt over there is that people might have been sitting in the back not giving their name, like we had to keep on asking, please give your name for the court report. And that's why I told you at the brokerage meeting, this is all on record. We have a court report. If there's a discrepancy,
No.
we need to pull it.
No problem.
And I feel for it. I'm with you. But if we keep on just,
If you're with me,
I'm
all
with
of
you.
y'all need to roll your sleeves up, get to work, fix it. We got in this mess, we need to figure out a way out of this mess. It can't be one-sided, it can't work for one and not for everybody else.
I will say this for St. Martin Parish. We're letting outside lawyers come in here and trying to run our parish. Not just the attorneys, but the courts also. And my belief is when we get our schools back to when we can make decisions, because as a board member, we have to sit up here and follow what the courts are telling us.
Exactly.
And I have no problem with it, but at the same time, we, as a board, can express in our own way with all sides are saying. And that's what we're trying to do, and that's why we're still in court. That's about as best as I can explain it, because trust me, for me to sit up here and keep my mouth closed, it must be God doing it, because I have to keep it closed a lot of times, because we would like to give y'all information, but like Mark Boyer said the last meeting, why would you give your opponents the information and then they can go and review it and bam, we lose?
Sir, but you made yourself the opponent.
Oh, no. There's no way. No way. But I'm not in favor of it.
All right, well, that's up to the board.
Yeah.
So,
But thank you for your
we
time.
don't have a motion. We have a motion by Ms. Vito. We have additional meeting. Motion by Dr. Like a second. Okay, we'll go to the next item. Board members request.
All right.
This is not yours first, consider transfer sales tax collection to the parish government sheriff office.
Hope not to keep it too long. I hope that I'll have to make a motion.
Discussion.
Well, yeah, a discussion. But today I received my property tax bill, and it's from sheriff collecting taxes. Now, sales tax is collected by the school board. The reason it is collected by the school board is because years and years ago, 20 years ago, we had computer, one of the first computers on here, and we basically volunteered to do it. But other parishes, I can name a few. I mentioned Cameron Parish collector taxes. In the last few months, I've talked to just about every parish. Ascension Parish and St. Mary Parish, the parish government collected sales taxes. We, in Warren Parish, have done the collection at least 30 years. But we, again, I don't think it's a good fit for the school board to be collecting sales taxes. Most of your agencies today, the sheriff, the government, the parish government, they have computers like we do. The school board should be concentrating more on what we just talked about, of course, educating our graduates to go to college or vocational technical, improving our school performance scores. So I think we should consider forming out the sales tax. So all I'm asking is, without a motion, with Mr. Superintendent Blanchard, I'm asking him to have a meeting with the sheriff, Betty Pro, and Jessica Sears, the three of them get together and discuss possibilities of a changeover. And then he comes back next board meeting and tells us whether it can be done. We may have suggestions, and then we can make a decision if they agree on possible changes. That's all I'm asking. You agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, don't meet with one, then meet up. All three of you will get together.
Let's use this details of,
If you want to send it
Why
down,
don't you open the sales
I'm
tax?
finished with it.
All right.
Can you give us a report called the school board?
Sales tax, the department is self-funded. It doesn't come out of general fund. I don't think that would change whether the sheriff's office or parish government runs it. The three employees we have, their salaries come out of whatever programming we use to run the system, come out of the collections. Our sales tax collections have been very good the last couple of years. In fact, we put a report in the packet last month, and you see the highest it's been ever. So, but I don't have a problem. I can meet with Mr. Seegers and Sheriff Rowe. And get their thoughts.
You have to report that board meeting.
All right. And what's the main reason why you don't want it for the school board? The main reason?
It's a big job for the staff, all right? It has created problems. I don't want to discuss it, but in the last 2 or 3 years, I've heard street talk. We all have to. I don't want to go down into details. I'm satisfied with the collection. But why should we, the superintendent, spend that much time or the board when it's not something that is not, it's hard to say, it doesn't fit. Right?
No, I guess so.
Okay. It's like the glove, right? And it's something that sooner or
Do you have
later.
anything to say then? Okay, all right.
Item
B.
And item B, again, putting more work on him.
Bus ride.
I intend to make no motion, but coming over, trying to change my mind. Likewise, for the last 21 years, we talked about bus routes. We discussed it last board meeting. But for some strange reason, about 3 weeks ago, my phone rings. This is, and I didn't even write it down. I am the attorney representing the bus drivers, association. And I need to ask you a few questions. And basically, I go to that board meeting. And I would like to know, when is it the board last voted on Mr. Such and Such's route in my district? I have to tell the truth. About 12 years ago. I can't explain, we don't basically. And then he goes back and he says, I'd like to have an additional question, if you don't mind. When did you modify Mr. Wade law? When did you approve the changes? I said, sir, I can't tell you anything about drive, where to drive. And I can tell you that we have a staff, that you can call them. But as far as I'm concerned, I voted for neither one of those because it was never, every route, we don't vote on it. Now, during, last month, I get, somebody said, have you looked at some of those listening sessions we just about? My kids are on the bus. They gotta travel 12 miles. And it got me thinking about some of the things I talked about. The kids in my area, Hornerville, Romance Subdivision, at 6:15, when it turns around, you're picking up kids at 6:15. That's 2 hours before school starts. And then you drop them off at 4:45. Those 4 kids are on, from bus and school about 11 hours.
So that's your bus driver that's parked at the high school at 6:38 in the morning, waiting until 7 o'clock. So that's that bus driver that shouldn't be picking up those kids there.
I don't know.
Because I left to go to physical therapy the other morning, it's 6:38 in the morning, and I'm looking, and I'm seeing this bus just sitting there, and Mr. Cole, 7 o'clock is what they should be
They're
at?
supposed to be, they were meet students at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
That's the time that they are supposed to
Oh.
let the students out, but
I saw it.
sometimes they're earlier.
Now, what can be done about it? Where we start responsibilities, maybe the through the sector against the law, but this increase problems, how many kids at school, and we run the school board, we see the part of kids. But we really are not, we're not doing what we can to make sure that those kids are not on the bus and school for 11 hours, all right? It's not fair. And then they gotta go back home and they do homework. That's why some of those kids hate school. And there's got to be an easy solution. As much as I've been critical of Start in the last year, I have never had one call about bus problem. So, I think that as a board, we can do something to minimize the time spent on buses. So what I would like to propose, likewise, is superintendent and his staff, Steve involved, and come up with a plan to make sure that no kid is picked up before 7:15, 1 hour before school, and 1 hour after.
There's no way.
Now, they can, as far as I'm concerned, you can reduce some of those, I pick up a here, I pick up a here, I pick up a here. Some of that stuff is not needed. So all I'm asking is that the staff conducts a study to reach that goal, whether you have to get a few more buses, but no, I want to come up with a plan within 6 months that no kid is picked up before 1 hour before school and returned 1 hour. That's what I'm asking about. Now, again, Steve, in charge,
Can't do it.
you know, we used to have meetings with Ms. Turco, and she got things done, all right? Did words come to words, you get it, good help, all right? Now, can we do it or not?
Now,
6 months done.
Mr. Steve and I have actually had several conversations on that matter in the last few weeks. And we are working on reviewing the routes. Bus driver you mentioned, I'm very familiar with that particular case, because I did get a letter from that attorney also.
You did.
Which, they call an attorney on me, I'm gonna call an attorney back on them. Okay, so I got with Mr. Boyer, I provided him the information. I got with Mr. Darcel and with Ms. Tina Pierre, and that whole scenario there goes back 7 or 8 or 9 years. And without getting into too much detail, all that information has been provided to Mr. Boyer, and he has been in conversation with the attorney from the School Bus Drivers Association. The important thing to remember about bus routes, when I worked in Lafayette Parish, we had split routes. The elementaries and primaries, well, the high schools started early. That's why you see kids being picked up at 5:30 in the morning.
3 different bells.
Right. And the primary elementary schools and the middle schools start later and they finish later. If you look at Lafayette Parish on the map, it's much smaller than St. Martin Parish geographically. When you look at St. Martin Parish, keep in mind, almost half our parish is out in the basin. But the half that's not, that's populated where people live, there's 750 square miles just in the St. Martinville zone. So some of those buses travel, they don't have a lot of kids, but they travel about a mile. You mentioned an easy solution. I started in Cecilia 22 years ago. And coming from Lafayette, I had those ideas in my head. If there was an easy solution, Jervis Thibodeau, Lindsay Landry, Sam Winiger, Henry Darcel, Laura Turple, there was an easy solution, we would have taken it a long time ago. It's more complicated than, when you start digging into it, it starts to get really complicated. The other thing about bus routes that you have to keep in mind is, you have a route that's defined in a certain area, okay? And a lot of them kind of look like the shape of a pie, when you look at them, they tend to work that way. But if you have a road in that zone or that area the driver drives that nobody lives on, but next year somebody moves in, you gotta send that bus down that road. So that in effect is a change to the route, but we're not gonna come to the board with every time somebody moves in onto a road. When we change a route and get board approval on this, when you make a substantial change where you send that driver to another area. But bus routes change all the time. I mean, you might have a little road, 2 or 3 kids live down, they graduate for 3 or 4 years, you don't have anybody down there. Then a new family moves in or somebody has another kid and then suddenly you gotta go back down that road. So the staff has to have the ability to make those kinds of changes. So, and sometimes buses get overloaded. The particular case you're talking about, that goes back to when Mr. D was in charge of it, probably 8 or 9 years ago. Mr. Laverne might have been here at that time.
Right.
And the bus was overloaded, to make some little minor adjustments to get everybody to school. We will have beyond the 66 or 72 level, the passenger level. So they made some adjustments. And then, things change, the numbers decline a little bit, you're able to shift that back to that original drive. So that's kind of what happened in this case. This is, but Mr. Boyer is dealing with it, and Mr. Steve and I have had numerous conversations. We purchased a Zonar system on the buses. It's actually in place. You can log into that system and see where a bus is at. It pops up on the map, and you can see it moving. You can tell the speed of the bus, you can tell when they stop, you can tell the idle time, you can tell the total number of miles that day, you can tell the total number of minutes that day. The thing that's missing is every kid's gonna have a card, and the card has a chip in it. When they walk on the bus, they pass under that scanner and it reads the chip, no matter where it's at on. You don't have to scan it. When you pass it under, it reads the chip. And once that's done, it's gonna give us the exact ridership of every bus. After it's in place for about 2 months, you can pull reports and see what the average ridership is, the length of time. Once we get that data, we can sit down by area and start amending those routes and adjusting those routes. Because you'll have data that nobody's gonna be able to lie. If the kid got on the bus that day, it's gonna count. The other thing with that system is, especially when we're on a buddy system, sometimes kids get on the wrong bus, especially the little ones. So if the kid doesn't get home, you can type in the name, it's supposed to tell you what bus the kid is on. So then you can locate the child quickly. So, but what you're talking about is revisiting those routes, that is something in the works. The problem we have right now, the cars are on back order, supply chain issues. The systems are installed in the bus, I can follow the bus from my desk, but I don't have numbers right now. So that's where we are. But
in my area, I'd say half of the parents are educated schools.
right.
A
Yours is,
lot of times you see a bus for almost nobody in it.
yeah, the Cecilia area has some really long routes, and you got some routes out there where the bus might go a mile before it picks up the next kid. They just spread out. Like Portage right there, it's like, kind of like some areas in Cade, and you start getting up toward homes in there. Just your rural,
One house.
yeah, you better hope you're not hauling cane out of it.
Okay, he brought up something, why does Head Start not have
We don't run buses in that.
All right, item C. All right, Paul, get that, discuss voting. Thank you, Ms. OJ. This is just to recognize, but it's to point out two ways that I want to talk about. Number one, I had a phone call from a parent pertaining to bullying. She was dissatisfied, the grandmother was dissatisfied. I called Mr. Blanchett, told him about it. He investigated. There was some wrongdoing. Everybody was disciplined accordingly, that needed to be disciplined, if that a reprimand, whatever word you want to use. And it was taken care of. The only bad thing is that child ended up leaving the school system, went to another school. We lose a good 8 kids right there because of that. And maybe if it was handled a little different, we may have saved that child. But on the flip side, it brought some attention to me, so I started questioning somebody that I think I live in our area. So I'm telling him about the situation. He said, well, I have a situation right now. He said, 2 brothers walk into the restroom after this little transfer, walked into the restroom. I said transfer, wasn't the first day of school, but the kid wasn't from the city. And they go into the restroom, the older brother tells the younger brother to hit him. At first it didn't go, well, fine, and this is the story that we got. So of course, this is hearsay. So finally, the little brother hits on, the kid defends himself back. Once he defends back, here comes the big brother, beats him up. The kid that was getting beaten up didn't want to talk. Rightfully so. It's hard because nobody likes a tattletale, is what they tell us at work, but it's not being a tattletale, it's defending yourself. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it takes a group effort. And finally, the kid broke down, he was able to go to an office, call his parents, and told the parents what went on. Well then, and I'm gonna be honest with you, this guy here does a good job. And it's a matter of proving that happened in the restaurant. Unless we can get group effort from the parents Staff is, staff, like I just pointed out, not all of them are right, not all of them are wrong. But hopefully, we can start trying to prevent it, because this is a nationwide thing. Bullying's been going on since I was in school. It is. So, my big point was, I'm trying to, Fred and Kevin, y'all have one of the toughest jobs, I'm gonna tell you right now, to go through that route, and it just is what it is. But I'd also like to have Mr., because Mr. Landry and I have spoke like this, and he brought up something during investigations that a lot of time comes out, and I'd like to hear it from him.
Bullying, Mr. Wilson and I, Mr. Bonone and I, and a lot of the principals, we get calls all the time about bullying. Sometimes it's legitimately bullying, sometimes it's not. The state legislature has a law specifically defines what bullying is and how you're supposed to handle it. Once you establish that it meets the definition, there's certain steps you have to take. The thing we run across a lot is that somebody will, either a child will report bullying or the parent will call in and report it. And when you begin to investigate, it does not meet the definition of bullying because it's a back and forth. One kid says something, the other one says something back. They end up kind of arguing or picking back and forth. And that's not bullying, that's an argument. And what you're seeing a lot of today is social media stuff. We'll start picking back and forth, and we'll get text messages, and when you start looking a little bit further, you see the back and forth between students. So a lot of it is what the parent or what the child or whoever's making the claim defines as bullying compared to what the law defines. The law, and I'm not going to quote it because I don't have it memorized, but basically what it amounts to is this, and I touched on it in my presentation last month. If I pass by Mr. Wilson and I say something ugly about whatever, about the way he's dressed or whatever, and I never tell him anything again, that's not bullying by the definition. Like, it's not nice, it's inappropriate for me to do that, it's unacceptable, it's mean, it's hateful, whatever. But that's not bullying. Okay? Now, if I pass by him, I tell him that today, I tell him that tomorrow, he tells me to stop, I keep doing it, he goes and he reports it, somebody else, the teacher, administrator tells me to stop doing it, and I continue doing it, that's bullying, when it's repeated. Okay? Now, if I pass by him and I tell him something, he tells me something back, we begin to engage in a back and forth argument, it's an argument, it's not bullying. Okay? So that's, sometimes parents call in and they want it to stop, which I understand, but that when they're arguing back and forth, doesn't classify as bullying according to policy or the state law says. So you have to handle it differently. Then you begin to mediate and try to get them to stop. Now, if one party refuses to stop, then it may turn into bullying. So it's not always a cut and dry thing, and you have to properly investigate it. And Mr. Hebert is correct. What happens with a lot of these cases, and this is another thing we get a lot, the parents will call and they're angry because their child is hurt. So either emotionally, sometimes physically. But the child has never told anybody at school. So they call and they're mad at the principal, they're mad at the teacher, and then you can roughly they report it to but they haven't told anybody. So, so we're finding out about it after everybody's upset. So, then we investigate, we get involved, we put in a stay away contract with the students. That's typically the first. If there's no physical contact, then you put in a stay away contract where they have to stay away from each other, no comments to each other. Once they violate it, then you begin to take disciplinary action against the child. Because the state law, and Mr. Wilson, Mr. Bonone, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the law requires that you intervene first. You don't just give disciplinary consequences right away. You have to intervene first, warn both parties, do something to try to keep them apart. And then when it happens again, then you begin the disciplinary action. And there's some guidelines you have to follow about how you contact parents, and how you interview and so on. But that's only done after it's determined by definition to be bullying.
And that information is sent up to the state. Once you've conducted your thorough investigation and verified that it is bullying, then once you begin to enter that information into our student information system, that information is then uploaded to the state. So it's not just a matter of, okay, St. Martin Parish we've done what we needed to do with this particular child. It moves up to another level. So it is something that's done in most cases with all districts that use J Campus. So I don't know how it works in another student information system, but in J Campus, that's how it works. So, and those forms and everything are already there because this is a state initiative. So it's not something that's just unique to St. Martin Parish. So,
But I'm thanking those who are doing it the right way. And if we have some employees that are just kind of ignoring, please stop ignoring. We'll try to help out these kids out. But all, again, we have a lot of good ones that are trying to catch it, and it's hard. You know, that's probably the main thing I want to get across right here, that we have good employees out there. You know, it's just, sometimes it's, and again, some of them turn the other way. I wish those would.
I think one of the things too, with Mr. Hebert, we have to try to change the mindset of children so that they're comfortable coming and telling adults at school if something is going on.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay to tell so that we can stop whatever is going on, but I don't think that there's a code that kids have where they don't want to tell. So,
Okay, thank you. All right, next item, metal detectors. With the ongoing problem nationwide, I decided to put this up, and Ms. Vital had brought this up years ago also about metal detectors. And the cost factor was outrageous, but I think there's other ways to go about doing it that we could probably still do it within cost reason. And I spoke with Mr. Blanchard, and he had some great ideas because he actually checked into different packages. I even spoke with Mr. Bonon, you know, a little bit about it. He's the one who kind of brought it back to my attention at a football game one night. And some of it is entering school, possibly doing random, you know, checks throughout the school, depending on how we want to do it. That would be for staff to come back and put something in place, have a protocol, and then maybe come back to the board to get it approved. The other thing would be also on extracurricular activities such as athletic events. You know, get a situation, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, we have been shootings throughout, we have all these threats put out, and it's getting to the point where it's coming back into our community. And now it's probably time that we be proactive to some degree with that, and hopefully at least deter some of that when if they're thinking about bringing up a weapon on campus. Hopefully we can deter them, because if they see it happening one or two times, they're gonna shut it down, in my opinion. Now, if somebody's gonna bring it after that, then they have intent to do something wrong. You know, and the one thing that I asked that staff, look into it, come back with what it would cost, give us some ideas, and anything you want to interject, and Mr. Blanchard.
You talking about standalone metal detectors?
He came up with.
Actually in contact with a company, they're giving me a bid, I don't know when they're gonna send it to me, but we're looking at the walk-through metal detectors,
The portable
using
ones.
the portable ones they have on coasters, and using the ESSA funds that we have in my department. So we have a bid out, and we're looking to see how much those are.
And the one thing that Alan and I talked about was staff. What would it cost? Let's say it's, and a lot of people are thinking, okay, we're gonna get off a bus, we're gonna have to go through a metal detector every day. That's not what at least I don't think that's what we're going that route, because I don't think we have enough time in the day to do that. You know, I mean, y'all know that firsthand. And that's why we do it on a random basis. And they come up with a plan, but don't tell anybody what the plan is, and just do it. And they'll catch on.
Yeah, there's a machine, like when I go to conference, you pass through, it tells you where it is on you. So it's like, if it's in your socks, or you have your pocket or whatever, it'll tell you.
That's just like athletic events, what I brought up a while ago.
Mhm.
You prepared that night. It doesn't have to be at all three games, and it doesn't have to be every game. You go that day, you're gonna walk through it, and after that, all of a sudden, people are gonna start, okay, well, I'm gonna just bring my wallet and my phone now, you know, whatever, and keys. Just something to put out there, and if Mr. Blanchard has anything to interject before.
Now, I've talked to some other superintendents that are doing it now, you've seen it being used, some of the surrounding parishes having trouble at their athletic events. Talking to those superintendents, one of them, Tommy Bauer from Vermillion Parish, his comment to me was, like at our football games, the sheriff's department for many years, going all the way back to when Charles August was the sheriff in Ontario, we've had a very good relationship with them. We have several of the police officers that handle that, also handle security for the for the UL games and whatnot. So they have a, a plan in place at every game, how the officers conduct themselves, where they're at, like as the game progresses at different phases of the game. So Tommy's comment to me is that St. Mark Parish is done very well. Not every parish has that. Some of them rely on city PD, different parts of different parishes rely on different police forces. Here, sheriff's office handles all three stadiums. And you have, like I said, a very well-defined plan on what they do. So we haven't had too much trouble at our games. And for years, they haven't allowed big bags to come in. If you come and try to come in with a backpack or a large bag, they send you back to the table. One of the issues with metal detectors, we've all been to conferences, we've all met with experts, we had people come in and the state police as well as other independent, like Spartan Security come in, and they've given us feedback on using metal detectors. Some districts have used them and gotten away from them. If you're gonna use it every day at your doors, it presents some issues. When you go to the airport or you go to the courthouse, when you walk through that metal detector, notice there's two police officers there. And there's a protocol they follow. When you're going through that metal detector, one of them's dealing with you and the other one's usually standing back. If somebody pulls out a weapon or something, that the guy that's standing back is the person that's gonna pull their weapon and deal with it. So you start putting metal detectors at the doors of the schools and you make people walk through them every morning, you're gonna have to have that properly staffed. You can't just put it there and then expect people to walk through it and not have enough staff members there to do it. What do you do if somebody walks in with a gun? Because now you're confronting an armed person. So you can expect the secretary to go tackle that person or somebody like that. You have to properly staff it and have a protocol.
Yeah, the school resource office.
You do, you have one officer. And the other thing we were cautious about with doing it is you can't just have one metal detector. You're gonna have to take Robert High, you've got over 800 students, right? Right. And the bulk of those students, the bell rings at about 7:45, 7:50. The bulk of your students are coming in probably between 7:20 and about 7:45. So you got close to 800 people coming in those doors. You're gonna have 4 or 5 metal detectors. You're gonna have to staff them properly. The other thing is, you're gonna have periods of time where you've got a large group of people waiting to come through the door. If somebody wants to do harm, you just created a really big target for them right outside the front door of the school. So there are things you have to take into consideration in doing it. Now, since we met with those experts 5 or 6 years ago, school systems, law enforcement have developed protocols where you can use them and you eliminate some of those problems. And I don't want to discuss too much of the protocols are, because if you're telling people what you're doing and how they're gonna turn on the feature system. But there are ways now and to put them into schools and be able to function. And additionally, the technology has come a long way because at one time, it was not a portable system and now it is. You have them on wheels where you can roll them to different points in the school. So at one time, it was not really something that we could realistically consider. It has become something we can. So Ms. Abear called me today about it. What we discussed is, I would ask the board, give us a couple of months, I'll get the staff, we'll get some quotes on what those things would cost, and then get the protocols, present that to the board. You're gonna have to have a whole host of policies in place for that. Because what do you do when you catch somebody? How do you, what does staff have to do when you have a search? All of those things have to be addressed in your policy before you put it into place. So we'll investigate all of that, we'll come back to you with some recommendations.
We'll see, but I just want to add on to what he was saying. I mean, every day we have a single point entry at Robert High School. We have 2 people that work, and it's usually an administrator and a teacher. And all we're doing is scanning for ID, proper uniform, greeting them, that kind of stuff. But if you don't have 2 people, it doesn't work, okay? One person is checking, scanning, the other person handles all the people that have the issues. Now, if they're walking through a metal detector, you got belts, you have all kinds of other devices, cell phones, everything, all of that's got keys, all that's gonna go off. Okay, so, like he's saying, there has to be a policy, and we gotta think with common sense. Yeah. I know I do, and I think all the high schools and junior highs have the handheld one. We do random metal detector searches periodically. If something happens, if something goes missing, or if a teacher reports somebody has a vape or something in class, nobody messes up. I'm just using that as an example. We go in there with 3, 4, and 5 people. One person is searching or doing whatever. We do that. Or when we do if we do a random one, you have to be prepared, again, with 3, 4, 5 people who can get it done quickly, because if not,
And that's why I want to see what, see what.
and then, when I attended the game at Beauchene, it's not school employees that were searching people. They implemented the clear bag policy, but it's the deputies, St. Henry Parish deputies who were wanting and, doing all that. It was a handheld wand, and they did it at Beauchene. Right. So it's not school employees that were doing it.
Okay.
There's ways we can do it now that technology has improved a little bit, so we'll come back with some recommendations.
All right. Okay, need a motion to go executive, motion by
No, there's no
Go
executive, for executive session.
Motion to adjourn. Second. Motion second. All in favor? Aye.